How to change default Python version. I have installed Python 3.2 in my Mac. After I run /applications/python3.2/update shell profile.command, it's confusing that when I type Python v in terminal it says that Python 2.6.1. How can I change the default Python version?
Updated for 2021. Regardless if you are on Mac, Linux, or Windows. If you are confused about how to start the latest version of Python, on most platforms it is the case that Python 3 leaves your Python 2 installation intact, due to the above compatibility reasons. Thus you can start Python 3 with the Python 3 command. Historically, the naming convention is that generally, most scripts will call Python 2 or Python 3 explicitly. This happened due to a need for backwards compatibility. Even though technically Python doesn't even guarantee backwards compatibility between minor versions, Python 3 really breaks backwards compatibility. At the time, programs invoking Python were expecting Python 2, which was the main version at the time. Extremely old systems may have programs and scripts which expect Python equals Python 2, and changing this would break those programs and scripts. At the time this answer was written, OP should not have changed this due to maintaining compatibility for old scripts. Circa year 2021. Nowadays, many years after the Python 2, Python 3 transition, most software explicitly refers to Python 2 or Python 3, at least on Linux. For example, they might call #/user/bin/end Python 2 or #/user/bin/end Python 3. This has, for example, Python is Python 3 package, free up the Python command to be settable to a user default, but it really depends on the operating system. The prescription for how distribution should handle the Python command was written up in 2011 as PEP 394, the Python command on Unix-like systems. It was last updated in June 2019. Basically, if you are writing a library, you should specify the version of Python, 2 or 3, or finer grained under specific circumstances, you can use. Otherwise, as an end user, you should feel free to rename this for your own personal use, though your OS or distribution may not make that easy. Shell alias. You could, however, make a custom alias in your shell. The way you do so depends on the shell, but perhaps you could do alias py equals Python 3 and put it in your shell startup file. This will only work on your local computer, as it should, and is somewhat unnecessary compared to just typing it out, unless you invoke the command constantly. Confused users should not try to create aliases or virtual environments or similar that make Python execute Python 3. This is poor form. This is acceptable nowadays, but PEP 394 suggests encouraging users to use a virtual env instead. Different 3 versions or 2 versions. In the extremely unlikely case that if someone comes to this question with 2 Python 3 versions, for example 3.1 versus 3.2, and you are confused that you have somehow installed 2 versions of Python, this is possibly because you have done manual installations. You can use your OS's standard package /program install/uninstall/management facilities to help track things down, and perhaps, unless you are doing dev work that surprisingly is impacted by the few backwards incompatible changes between minor versions, delete the old version, or do make uninstall if you did a manual installation. If you require 2 versions, then reconfigure your $path variable so the default version you want is in front, or if you are using most Linux distros, the command you are looking for is sudo update alternatives. Make sure any programs you run which need access to the older versions may be properly invoked by their calling environment or shell, by setting up the var path in that environment. A bit about $path. Side note, to elaborate a bit on path, the usual ways that programs are selected is via the path, echo $path on Linux and Mac, environment variable. You can always run a program with the full path, for example /user/bin/ square button, some args, or cd/user/bin then /square button, some args. Replace blank with the echo program I mentioned above for example, but otherwise typing, square button, some args has no meaning without path end variable which declares the directories we implicitly may search then execute files from. If /user/bin was not in path, then it would say, square button, colon command not found. The first matching command in the first directory is the one which is executed. The which command on Linux and Mac will tell you which subpath this is. Usually it is, for example on Linux, but similar on Mac, something like /user/bin/python which is a symlink to other symlinks to the final version somewhere, for example. Side note 2. In the rarer case a Python program invokes a subprogram with the subprocess module, to specify which program to run, one can modify the paths of subprocesses with sys.path from the sys module or the Python path environment variable set on the parent, or specifying the full path. But since the path is inherited by child processes, this is not remotely likely an issue.
Check the location of Python 3. Write alias in bash_profile. Reload bash_profile. Confirm Python command. Old question, but alternatively. On macOS X using the python.org installer as you apparently have, you need to invoke Python 3 with Python 3, not Python. That is currently reserved for Python 2 versions. You could also use Python 3.2 to specifically invoke that version. If you also installed a Python 2 from python.org, it would have a similar framework bin directory with no overlapping file names, except for 2 to 3.